Hey, Matt.
Hey, Mike.
How's it going?
Going well. Happy Boxing Day.
Yeah, thanks. Happy Groundhog Day 2+ months early. Would you like to do a podcast?
I would like to do a podcast.
Yeah, I don't really want to, though. So.
Okay.
All right, well, thanks for joining us.
This week's episode.
Hey, welcome to Hacking the Grepson, where we make jokes that are super funny right before we start talking. It is the end of December. That means Advent of Code is over for 2022. I definitely did not get through I didn't even attempt the last few problems. I was defeated yet again by this programming challenge, but I did do better than last year, and so there is that. How did you feel about the last week of problems, Matt?
They were a little bit more my speed than the week before, but they were still hard. I did not get them all for sure.
Yeah, I was looking at our leaderboard of the friends that are all doing it together, and no one got all 25, let alone, all 25 days. So it is a challenge, even for very good programmers.
Yeah, all told, I think I have 40 stars. So
40
that's
stars?
not bad. You know, I missed 5 days, but really what that is a lot of those are the second star of a day.
Right. No, that's very good progress. I only have 21, but you know, of the ones that I gave it a real try, you know, I feel like I did okay, but I still have a lot to improve on. So anyway, let's go over the last days. So this is day 19 to 25. Just a quick side note. I did keep working on that tiny code Christmas thing. I fell off a couple days at the end because even that started getting a little hard for me, just because I'm not used to doing cool visuals with math equations. But it was still fun, and it totally seems like something I would do again next year. But I did go back, and I did day 18, like you suggested, and I did get the first part. I actually used a 3D modeling program that just lets you draw cubes on an XYZ plane, and that really helped me visualize kind of how to figure it out. And I remember you saying that at the time you weren't even sure what like the second part of it was asking you. I feel like I figured out what it was asking me, even though I didn't figure out the way to figure out, like, because essentially the first problem was like figure out the surface area of these cubes and how they're stacked. Like so basically don't count the sides that are touching another cube. And then the second part was find the cubes of air that are created within this structure, which was, you know, a really cool second part. I just never got to it. Did you ever get to part 2 of that?
I haven't gone back and worked on any days other than Christmas Eve is the only day I've worked on after the day of any of the days that we've had. Yeah, I think what I needed on 18 was to visualize it. Mm-hmm. And that's one of my big takeaways from this year is I'm noticing that the folks who do really well with it also have some visualization setups pretty handy for it. And I think I need to get myself into that space before next year so that I can quickly and easily, without having to add extra mental bandwidth to the problems, visualize things. Because I just print stuff out. And if it's not easy to print it out, it's not happening.
Yeah, the Advent of Code puzzles definitely, they have a lot of visual components. I mean, that's one of my favorite parts of it. But yeah, when you start getting into, you know, 3D cubes of air within other 3D cubes, that's a tough thing to do without using some kind of visualization process.
Yeah. And I think we've probably talked about this before, but I have that thing where you can't actually see images in your head. And so visualizations like that I'm like, as soon as it hits 3D, I'm out. Because I can draw a 2D picture on my whiteboard, but 3D, I just can't visualize well.
Yeah.
I had the same problem in school. I hit Calculus 3. It started talking about spinning the line you'd get from an integral around an axis, and I was like, nope, I'm out. I can't see that.
All right. So the first day we haven't talked about is day 19, and that's called Not Enough Minerals. Take away, Matt, because I didn't even attempt this one.
I enjoyed this one. My initial thought, I started writing down my initial thoughts for all these, like before I even attempt them. And that's when I wrote, looks fun. I'm sure part 2 will be horrible.
And was it?
Well, let's find out. So
Okay.
the objective of this one was you have found some geodes and you want to crack the geodes. In order to crack the geodes, you need a geocracking robot. In order to get a geode cracking robot, you need to build them, and it needs, I think it's obsidian and ore. In order to get obsidian, you need to build an obsidian robot, which costs ore and clay. And in order to get clay, you need a clay robot, which costs ore. And then you have an ore robot, which costs more ore. And so you start with one ore robot and a robot factory, which lets you build one robot per turn. And then the goal is just get as many geodes as possible. So I believe that I got this one right. Oh, no, I think I never got... This is one of the ones I didn't get.
You did not get this one, yeah.
I ended up with classes for robots and resources and inventory, but what I could never get to, and I just never had time to work on it because work was busy this week, was how do I decide which I should make next? Like, I knew how to process it, and I think what we had to do is yet again a breadth first search. This year seemed to be all about breadth first searches and compilers. That was sort of the way I viewed it. It's like you're either building a little mini compiler calculator thing, or you are doing a breadth first search, or sometimes both. And this is one of the ones I was like, I probably need to do a game tree with an option at every turn, and then breadth first search it. And I just, when I got to that point, I was like, okay, I understand what I want to do, what I need to do. I don't want to do it. That's like just too much work, and I got too much going on trying to catch up to Christmas. So I never finished this one. So I don't even know what part 2 is. But my guess is they were either going to add in another robot, or they were going to say, oh, you can actually switch between the different blueprints each time, and you can build this one and this, and then do that, evil. And then this thing over here, and like optimize. But that actually probably would have been relatively easy. I just figured it would be difficult. So that's where I got on that one. Didn't finish it, but I was able to produce lots and lots of robots. Just never figured out
the world needs more robots. Yeah. Okay. Well, let's move on to day 20 then. This is definitely one that I made an attempt on and was interesting, but I was not able to get even part 1 because of a reason we both got around to, which was the way that we were trying to parse the data did not work when there was the same data multiple times in the data set. And so you had to do a more complicated way of keeping track of things. And I never got to that part. But what about you?
Yeah, I thought I understood this one. But like you said, we hit duplicate values, which it was not clear that there could be duplicate values because of the way it was described.
Yeah, and the test case doesn't have it.
So the solution, and the solution I had used... So basically what we had, this was called the Grove positioning system. And basically you got an encrypted file. But the way it was encrypted was this weird... It was just a sequence of numbers. And then at each index, you would move that number, the value spaces, right? So if you go to item 2, if you go to an item with value 2, you move that 2 spaces forward in the list. If you go to one with -3, you move it back 3 spaces. And it's a circle. It's a ring buffer.
Just a wraparound, yeah.
And it's like, just go do that. Run it once, see what happens, and I think the second one was run it 10 times or something. Yeah. So part 2 actually wasn't too hard. I literally just changed the it was run it 10 times and then get the like 1,000th number or something. Yeah. Oh, because in addition to mixing up the file, then you had to jump around and search in the file from your initial position. But it's like every time you moved one of the values, you still had to know what its initial index was.
Right.
The whole thing was silly. I felt like this one and the previous one had some, like, could have been written better.
Yeah, I'm not sure if everybody else also had issues, but I just spent a lot of time like, wait, am I even doing this the way it's supposed to be done? And then after all that work, realizing that, there could be duplicate values and all my code is for naught was kind of a downer.
Fortunately, most of my code was doable. It was just one part where I was deciding what to do. I had to do something else. But what I had to do was couple my initial value or my initial index with the new one. And so I just had to move those together. Oh, that's right. Because you process them in the same order every time. But where that thing had jumped to in the file, Yeah, it was a difficult one to do.
It didn't look difficult, but it ended up being difficult, and I still feel like I could, figure it out, but I ran out of time.
I think so. Yeah, you know what's wrong at this point.
Yeah.
So I got both stars on that one. So
nice job.
I felt pretty good about it once I figured it out. And I will say, I think a lot of people got stuck on that duplicate value thing. Although I had a lot of trouble. This is one of the rare ones where I went online and went to Reddit, and I was like, okay, where are people stuck? And I couldn't find anyone that said anything about duplicate values. And then somewhere I stumbled into it in like a comment of a comment of a comment on one of them. Like I even downloaded someone else's file just to run it against mine. I was like, okay, what input? Am I at least getting the same output to their input? But it wasn't helpful. So, but when I did post about it in my work Slack for the admin of code, at least one other person was like, "Oh my god, thank you." That's what I'm doing.
It's always
wrong.
great when you find at least that one person that's like, "Yes, I know what you mean."
I'm also dumb. Yay. Cool. Day 21.
Day
It's
21.
called Monkey Math. I liked this one.
I also made an attempt on this one. I ran out of time to actually see it through, so go for it.
Yeah. This is the one where I decided that compilers and breadth-first searches were the name of the game this year. Was on getting to this. So basically what was going on here, this was like a little mini compiler or calculator. You were given the name of a variable and then either an arithmetic operation involving two other variable names or a value. And then you were supposed to get what the root value would be after processing everything. Pretty straightforward on doing the first part. In fact, one of the rare times my program worked, first try, no issues.
I remember when you posted that. Yeah,
I was very excited. It was really fun. This is right up my alley of the kind of thing that I would write is to do this kind of processing. Like throughout in school and throughout my career, I've done a lot of things along these lines. So it was more, how do I do this in TypeScript than anything else for me.
Yeah.
Part 2, they threw a monkey elephant wrench into the into the equation, and instead of just figuring out, instead of one of them being one of the variables was HUMN was the name of the variable for human. And so instead of the value there, you had to figure out what value it would be, assuming that root's equation was actually an equality operation instead of a subtraction, which is what I think it was for me. So it's like, okay, if you assume that you're trying to make root true with this variable equals this variable, how do you do, what number do you put in order to how to do that?
How do you figure that out?
So I added a method to print out the equation and tried to manually simplify it, because it actually wasn't that hard, because effectively it's just algebra, right? It's like string of numbers with one variable. I'm like, okay, I can do that, but it's really long.
A lot of variables,
I tried to simplify it manually, and I ran into an obviously wrong answer. So I wrote code to do the same thing, like put together the equation and simplify it, and just isolate human on its own. And I got the same answer. Which I ended up submitting because I was like, all right, I'm sure this is wrong, but let's find out. It was the wrong answer. And then I just kept rereading and debugging my code I think I just spent like a couple of hours on it that evening while we were watching TV, just like, what am I doing wrong? And it turns out I was just making a basic math mistake. So I had something like A minus B equals C. And when I was reducing that, I ended up with B equals C plus A, instead of negative B equals C minus A. Like I wasn't doing I was bringing the minus sign over, because that doesn't, I don't remember what that's called in math.
Transitive, associative,
operation
something.
Works both ways. It's not, subtraction is not that.
Yeah.
So I'm like, oh crap, that doesn't work. So once I fixed that, worked right away. That was a fun one. I really enjoyed part 1 of that. Part 2 was frustrating, but entirely because of my own stupidity. Day 22. I only got 1 star on this, so we don't know what part 2 is. And same reason as with number 18. So this one was called Monkey Map. And you're given a 2D map with dots for open spaces and pound signs for obstacles, basically.
Feels very video game-ish.
And yes. In fact, I think I named one of my classes Player for it to walk. And then what you had to do, like you started, I think it was the leftmost open spot in the top row or something, facing east. And I was like, how? And then it gave you a list of instructions. It was like, follow this, which was honestly one of the more difficult parts. Was parsing that was a pain in the butt.
Yeah.
In fact, I don't even remember how I did it. But then you just follow the instructions and figure out where you end up, more or less. Like, this is fun. Basically, moving a character around a map is what I wrote. I mean, that it was very video gamey, like you said. There were some weird things. As with a lot of puzzles this year, if you go off one side of the map, you pop up on the other side like asteroids.
Yeah.
And if you were trying to go through a wall, you just stopped, but you kept, like, you didn't turn around or turn or anything. Like, if you were supposed to go 10 and you hit a wall at 1, you just stopped.
Right.
Which was a little strange. And then, but it wasn't too bad. Did you get the first part of this one?
No, I was not even able to attempt this one. I mean, I read it and I was like, yeah, this seems kind of like, okay, it's like a simple video game where you can move in 4 directions and it's just a matter of tracking your player through all these instructions. But I didn't even get a chance to try it. So what was the twist in part 2?
Part 2 broke my brain.
Please do tell.
So instead of the asteroids style, you go off one side and reappear on the other side of the map. The map was actually a 2D representation of a 3D space. And so you were supposed to effectively fold it into a cube. And I saw so many people, Richard in our channel did this. I actually did this as well.
Oh, you cut stuff out.
Cut out a cube. Cut out the shape so you could fold it into a cube so you could visualize it. But ultimately, like, I'm just not good at 3D manipulation. And I kept getting my, like, okay, you go off this way. And because what I was trying to do was write the code to be smart enough to figure that out. Like, okay, if I go off the right of section A, I'll end up at the top of section G facing down, or whatever, in the sample, like trying to figure out where the cubes were. And I wasted too much time doing that. In retrospect, I should have just gone through and figured out, like, okay, these coordinates are in this box. These are on this face of the cube. These are in this are in this, and this is how it maps when you go off. And I just never got to that because it was a pain, and I don't like 3D visualization.
I mean, it seems like this puzzle is something that, like you said, most video game developers have had to deal with something like this, like traversing a map, and so. It was one of the ones where, like, oh, if you knew how to do this or you learned how to do it, this would be actually a very useful skill in programming something, you know.
For sure. And even the second part of this, like, I would never build a world that way. And if I did, I wouldn't store it that way in memory. But it absolutely makes sense to do it that way. It's pretty efficient way of moving around a map.
Right.
It's just hard to actually visualize.
Right.
And I don't do well with that. So if I were going to take another cut at this, what I would probably do is make a, like, cube face class and populate each of those, and then have it know which way was left, right, up, and down. And then so it could do the translation itself.
Right.
And then I think this would be pretty easy because all my code was basically would have stayed the same. It was just a matter of mapping what happens when you leave the map. But the first part was fun. Day 23.
Unstable diffusion. I didn't even try this one. Is this having something to do with AI and creating graphics out of text?
My initial comment on this seems straightforward, but looking at the input, I bet part 2 will be to calculate until it finishes, which is going to take ages.
Optimization.
This one was it was like a cellular automata. Right, if you've ever played the Game of Life.
The Game of Life, yeah.
The board Game of Life, but you draw these pixels and then it follows rules.
Right.
It was that,
okay.
Effectively. Because it was the elves were each going to spread out in a certain way. So you got the initial configuration of the elves, and then they followed a pattern of if there was no one in any of the adjacent, including diagonal squares, you didn't move. If there was no one in any of the north 3 squares of you, you could move north, or else same with south, or then west, and then east. And so, like, you followed it. So, I mean, it laid out the algorithm really straightforwardly. I got tripped up on this one because there's a line in it about after each elf has had a chance to propose a move. Oh, yeah, that's the other thing. They propose a move in the first half, and then in the second half, if no one else proposed to go to that same spot, then they move. And then after all of that is done, so originally you consider north and south and west and east. You take north out and you put it at the end. So you would, next round, you'll consider south and then west and then east and then north. But the wording was a little ambiguous in this one. And I read that as each elf, the position they considered. So if the elf didn't move, I didn't pop the direction off for that elf. And so I actually made the problem much more complicated than it actually was. And when I simplified, once I understood it and simplified it, it was pretty straightforward.
Okay. And then part 2, or did you already talk about that?
Part 2, I wrote, I was right. I was right. You had to calculate until it finished. I recognized that there was probably some optimization that could be had here, but I didn't care. I was out of town by the time we got to this, so I changed my code to allow for it to not stop after 10 rounds or whatever the first one was, and just go until
memory runs out.
Moved. And I just let it run. I think it finished in like a half hour. I wasn't really paying attention to it. I was like, okay, go do your thing.
Yeah.
And
Computers
I came
are good
back
at that.
later and I was like, oh, it finished. Yeah. So,
okay. Yeah.
It was just getting to an answer once. What do I care?
Right. It does seem like, compared to last year, like there have been fewer optimization
I agree.
puzzles, which I think is for the better, because it's very frustrating when you figure out an algorithm that gets you like the first part, but then the second part requires you to like do it a totally different way. Otherwise, your computer takes until the heat death of the universe to figure it out. So I feel like they cut back on that a little bit. And then you probably could have written something that was more efficient, that didn't take half an hour to figure it out, but half an hour was reasonable compared to the heat death of the universe. So that's cool.
I think in talking about it with some other people, I was looking at, I believe, every space on my grid and not
just where the people
the
were.
Spaces immediately adjacent to the elves or something like that.
Yeah. So you were trying to redraw the whole.
That would have been
You were trying to redraw the whole grid every time, as opposed to just the parts that changed.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
But ultimately, that one wasn't too bad. Other than the dumb mistake I made. Day 24, my birthday.
Yeah.
I did not get this one.
That's a bad birthday.
Star. I know, right? I was kind of annoyed.
They should have just given it to you.
To spend on it. It was Christmas Eve. I didn't have a lot of time. It was probably the most difficult of the problems this week.
Yeah. Blizzard.
And I got close to it. So this was another here's a map. You start up in the upper left corner. An elf starts in the upper left-hand corner, needs to get to the bottom right-hand corner. And there are blizzards, and they're moving in straight lines. And if they hit a wall, they reappear on the other side. So again, asteroids, but blizzards. And what you had to do in order. So I wrote all the code to be able to calculate the movements of the blizzards effectively. And that all worked, I think, correctly. I ran into a really weird bug, an off by one error that was causing blizzards in the second to last row to skip the last row and reappear at the top. And that tripped me up for way too long before I noticed it, because I didn't have a good visualization program, or I probably would have. And it wasn't until I really started to draw it out that I noticed. I have a to-do in my code that says what I ultimately didn't get. What that actually turned out to be, and what I have not fixed yet, is the way that I was iterating through my list of blizzards. After I moved my blizzard, it modified that overall list, and it showed up again. So if I moved a blizzard down one, it would show up in the next inside the same loop I was already in. It didn't just skip over it. So I needed to change how I was iterating across my blizzards, and I didn't have time to do that.
Yeah.
But then ultimately, what I was going to do is calculate for each. So take an elf. I know where he starts. Here's the places I could possibly move based on where blizzards will be, and then keep that as a list. And then next time, look at all the positions I could have ended up in, and then make a list of all those places. So basically doing another breadth first search through all of the available spaces as they move each turn. And I got all that code in there. I think I just need to fix that one bit. It was just a big enough change to my code that I didn't feel like it. So that seems doable. So I don't know what part 2 was on this. My guess is that, okay, now you have multiple elves, and they can't be in the same space as each other. And how do you, and I don't even want to attempt that one if it's that just seems painful.
Yeah, agreed. Okay, so in the final day 25 on Christmas, full
day 25
of hot air.
This one was fun. You had some hot air balloons and a fuel heating machine, and you needed to get away, and you needed to, I don't know, fuel up a bunch of stuff. And ultimately what we were trying to do was, the way the fuel machine worked, it had to know a particular number, which was the amount of fuel you were going to consume. And so you had to give it that number. But
it was not in decimal or
it didn't
even
use
hex.
base 10.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a base 5, I think.
It wasn't even base 5. It was a variant of base 5. So normally when you're looking at like base 10 operations, you start at 0 and you go up to 9, and that's how many digits you can get in a space. You get 10 digits. Base 2 is 0 and 1, right? 0 is the lowest, and then n-1 is the top. This one started at -2 and went to 3. No, went to -2. So it went -2 to 2. So you had five values that could be in each place, and you still did the okay, in this first one is actually that value, and in the next one it's the power 5, or the base 5 to the first power, and then to the second, and so on. So you go from the 0th power, first power. So first one you multiply it by 1, second one you multiply it by 5, third column you multiply it by 25, and so on.
Right.
And then you just add all those numbers up. So converting from, they called that snafu, which is not the normal snafu, but instead was the special numeral analog fuel units.
Right. Obviously.
Converting from snafu to decimal was very straightforward. If you've ever done any conversion between bases, if you've ever written code to do that, it was very straightforward. It was just, instead of 0 through 5 or 0 through 4, you went -2
to
through 2.
Yeah.
It was a very, very simple thing. Going the other direction, I was a math minor in college. Computer science was in the math department. I'm good at math. I couldn't get my brain around it.
Really?
Christmas Eve night, I'd had a couple drinks. It was my birthday when I actually looked at this still, and I ended up playing around with it for I think 1 o'clock in the morning on Christmas Day, and I went, I need to go to sleep because my daughter's gonna wake up soon to open presents.
Yeah.
It was tricky. I just couldn't wrap my brain around how to do the math. And then as soon as I looked at it on the 25th, I was like, right away.
Oh.
I was like, I know exactly what I did wrong. I was just, because I knew what I needed to do was, if the number in this column is going to be negative, I have to add to my remainder. But I was trying to be too clever with my math and use one fewer variable than I actually needed, which was just screwing me up. I don't know why I was trying to do it that way, but because I was trying to do it that way, I kept getting the wrong answer.
That does seem like a recurring theme with these problems, where you run into issues because you're trying to be too clever, or you're trying to over-engineer, or you're trying to make it too perfect, when you really just need to do a lot less to get the answer and move on. And that's always something that's hard to fight. If you've done programming for long enough, you have a way that you like to do things, regardless if it's efficient or not.
Yeah. And I've done base conversions so many times in interview problems and whatnot. It's a very common problem to ask people to do. that I think I was just going rote with, I'm like, oh yeah, I know how to do this. And I wrote the code to do it, and it didn't work that way because of the trick that they threw in there.
Yeah. They're good at that.
But once I woke up, I was like, oh yeah, easy.
Do not try to program while asleep.
Unfortunately for part 2, as with every year, I believe, you cannot get the second star because the second star is given to you by getting all of the other stars.
Oh, is that how that works? I'd forgotten that.
Yeah.
Oof.
Yeah. So I got to part 2, but I can't do anything about it because I would have to go back and get my other 9 stars that I need.
Oh, so it won't even show you part 2 if you don't have the other.
Oh, no. It says, it shows me part 2, but it's, you get your star when.
Oh, I see. It's just a completion star. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
I got it. Well, that's a kick in the poop.
Kick in the poop, indeed.
Congratulations on getting as many as you did get done. Do you think you're going to go back and work on any of these post AOC? Like, really?
I don't know. I said I would last year, and I didn't. And this year, I might. I have this week off. I went and looked at 2021 just now to see. I actually got more stars last year. I got 2 stars all the way up through day 20.
Oh, nice.
And then I got 1 star on the 21st, 22nd, 23rd. Again, didn't get my birthday. And then the 1st star on the 25th. So I'm only a couple stars away on 2021. But I'm never going to go back to that. This year, I would probably go back to at least day 24.
Yeah.
And maybe day 19. I think those were the ones that I got real close, and I know what I need to do, and it's just a matter of like, do I want to bother writing that code? And I don't know. We'll see.
That actually reminds me of what you said about your Mazdal project, where you got to that point where you know what you need to do, but actually doing it is not interesting enough, and so it doesn't get done. So I'm a little sus of that statement, but I do hope that you actually do. I'm just going to come out and say that, yeah, I'm probably not going to go back and try these because it's weird because at the end of last year, I did go back to 2015 and worked on some just to see.
I did that last year.
Yeah.
And I'll probably keep doing that.
Yeah.
I like the new problems, but it's I have no incentive to solve the problems I already worked on.
Yeah, well, and also I think, a competition like this, like there is a lot of value in the zeitgeist of it, like doing it while people are doing it, and once it's over, it's a little more empty of a like, oh yay, I finally got 5 years ago's day 20. Okay, no one cares because no one is looking at that. So yeah, it's hard to motivate oneself.
It depends on what your goal with the thing is, right? Like, this year, in particular, my goal was to improve my fluency with TypeScript.
Yeah.
And absolutely doing admin of code in TypeScript helped me with that. Like, unquestionably. Like, I immediately noticed it in my actual day-to-day work. I was like, oh, I know how to do this. I started my job almost exactly a year and a half ago. Having never done TypeScript before, barely touching JavaScript. And going into a world where that's all I was doing. And I could get by. I can read it. I mean, code is code for the most part. Although JavaScript's dumb callback hell that it likes to do makes it a little bit difficult sometimes. But like ultimately, like I can write the code the way I would do Python, except I kept getting tripped up on little things. And a lot of those I had to do enough times as we were going through these problems that I can slap together a class without having to look up the syntax. So a lot of those things, just the repetition of writing the code, I have a better understanding of how the TypeScript compiler works now because I was running it myself as opposed to part of a build script that someone else had written.
Right.
So like all that stuff, much better. I have an appreciation of certain things that TypeScript does well. I double down on my hatred of certain things. But yeah.
Yeah. Well,
how about you? What was your sort of like takeaway from this year?
Yeah. Well, like I said in the beginning, I know that this is not the kind of programming that I do a lot or am particularly good at. I'm a web developer. I'm mainly doing visual stuff where I'm changing or writing code that puts stuff on websites, and this is not that kind of programming. But I bring those skills to the puzzles that have that strong visual component, and so I like that. That visual component, though, does take time, and so I think it sometimes gets in the way of me just getting to the actual algorithm that solves the problem. So that's kind of a pro and con. I did a little better than I did last year, so that's a pro. It definitely gave me a boost in the hey, I just like to do programming on my own, like personal programming, and like I talked before, it got me back into Pico 8 programming. Which I enjoy. I actually wanted to mention that I started a game on this other app called Low Res NX, which is for iOS, Mac, Windows, and Linux. Pico 8 is not on iOS, and basically it was one of those things where like, okay, I just like to do programming right now. I'm super hyped to just program stuff, but there's no Pico 8 on the iPhone. So I got to find something. So I found this other app, and instead of using Lua, otherwise, it's basically the same. It's like low res, small display, only like simple lo-fi music. It's got a sprite editor, but it uses Basic instead of Lua. So I have written go-tos lately. I'm a little ashamed of it, but I do have a working game that has a title screen that goes into a level, that has a player that you can move around, that has enemies that can damage you, that has things to pick up. If you pick up enough things, it does a win message. If you get hit too many times, it has a game over message. And I literally did it all on my iPhone just in my downtime. And it was super fun. And like that was like...
Oh, you coded it on your
iPhone
I coded as well. That's fun.
I coded everything. I made all the sprites and all the music on my iPhone, basically just in my downtime. And I even had my daughter and her friend play it. And they... it started out with like no theme. It was called Dude Guy. And it was literally just a dude guy and a bunch of like nondescript enemies and trees. And I remembered one of her favorite cartoons that she's been watching. And I'm like, I'm going to turn it into that. So I gave it the theme of that. And I coded the theme song as the music that plays. And, you know, it was my jam. That was totally my jam. And there's even a place where you can share them online that's fairly active. And so you can just upload your whole basic program. And it's all just a text. It's just a text file, just like Pico and Tech 80. With all the code and then all the graphics and all the sound, and then you just run it through that program and it knows what to do with it all, and it was super fun. So if nothing else, Advent of Code got me to do that, which I have not been that jazzed about doing in a long time, and I do want to like expand it and maybe even use it as a jumping off point for something else. So that's what I got out of it.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I would like a link to the thing you were just talking about.
I will do
Send
that
it to me afterwards.
I will do that.
That's great. Big thanks to Eric Wastel for putting together Advent of Code each and every year. These have been a lot of fun. Mm-hmm. Like Mike said, that does help kind of like revitalize the passion for coding, to have these fun little tangible projects to work on.
Yeah.
With a discrete ending condition, which is unlike real software engineering where you
just goes on forever.
You finish something and then a week later you are back in it again and you're like, oh, this problem.
Yeah. It is a perfect little nugget of productivity and fun. I will have to say though that like it happening in December and around a major holiday is an issue for time. Like I literally, I mean, not just the fact that I'm not necessarily good at some of this type of programming. I literally just did not have the time to even sit down and give it a real attempt. And I feel bad about that because I feel like I could have gotten more of these days if I even had the time and wherewithal to do it. And so, I mean, if they did it on a different month, you wouldn't be able to have, you know, the elf and reindeer and Santa themed stuff because it wouldn't make sense. But that's just the one con, I guess, of having it during December.
I would love like a weekly puzzle.
Yeah.
Like this.
Yeah.
Like it just came out once a week because I always have some downtime during the week, at least on the weekend.
Right.
And I'm not competitive enough to be the one popping up at 9 midnight Eastern time every single day and trying to do this. But I do want to solve the problem within, before the next one comes out.
Yeah.
So I would love, maybe you and I can do that. We'll figure out. we'll figure out how to do that, and maybe we'll make that happen.
That sounds good. Okay, so that's Advent of Code 2022. Hopefully, some of our listeners also tried it, and the good thing is that even if you didn't, all the puzzles are up there. You can try it whenever you want. The same for that Tiny Code Christmas thing that I talked about before. It's just up there. You can go do the puzzles whenever you want. And, I look forward to next year. But I'm also looking forward to not having the artificial thing hanging over my head each day, which I did feel sometimes like, oh, it's another day of Advent of Code. I really should look at it and attempt it. And it was like, wait, why am I feeling bad that I didn't try it? It's an optional puzzle. But I did feel bad. And so I am kind of glad that it's done and we can kind of like decompress and next time we get together we can talk about something a little more evergreen. But I think it was totally worth it to go over this because it is an interesting and exciting thing that happens in December, and I look forward to doing it again next year.
Since this year I decided to make people a lot of people Christmas presents with woodworking, I am happy Christmas is over altogether.
But did everybody like what you made?
Yes.
Okay. Well, that's good.
But I'll say 100% of my free time for the last month has been either Advent of Code or woodworking. Yeah. And while I enjoy both of those things, I'm exhausted.
Exactly.
So I look forward to going back and playing video games.
Yes, onward to consumption.
Yes.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us. You can look for more Hacking the Grepson at hackingthegrepson.com. We are on Twitter at HTG_podcast.
It's Happy New Year.
Yes. Happy New Year to everyone. And for now, we now return you to your regularly scheduled lives already in progress.